The moderator of Meet the Press, David Gray.
We are back for our final half hour. So much discussion, Speaker Gingrich, on Facebook in the course of this debate about jobs, and you can understand why. And we've talked about spending, we've talked about economic growth. It was Governor Romney who made the point to a young person who approached him that if he were president, and when this person got out of college, he or she'd have a job. If President Obama has a second term, he or she will not have a job. Isn't that the kind of thing that makes people angry with politicians? Easy answers like that?
Well, I don't think that's an easy answer. I think that's a statement of fact. Let me go back to what John DeStesso said, because it's exactly the same question. The long-term answer to $4 heating oil is to open up offshore development of oil and gas, open up federalized oil and gas, flood the market, as Dr. Paul said, make supply and demand work for us, not against us. The price will come down. Under Obama, 2011 was the highest price of gasoline in history. It is a direct result of his policies, which kill jobs, raise the price of heating oil and gasoline, weaken the United States, increase our dependence on foreign countries, and weaken our national security in the face of Iran trying to close the Straits of Hormuz. So the right president opening up in a Reagan tradition and using the massive development of American energy, there's 3.2% unemployment in North Dakota. There's a hint here. You can actually have jobs, lower price heating oil, which, by the way, means less LIHEAP spending, so you get more revenue for the federal government from royalties, less spending on LIHEAP subsidy, lower price. People are happier all the way around. That's what supply-side economics was originally all about in the 1970s.
But Governor Romney, on this economic question, you blame President Obama for the jobs crisis, but when you look at the data and a positive trend line, he still only gets the blame and none of the credit. How come?
Actually, I don't blame him for the recession and for the decline. What I blame him for is having it go on so long and going so deep and having a recovery that's been so tepid. Businesses I talk to all over the country that would normally be hiring people are not hiring. And I ask them why. And they say because they look at the policies of this administration and they feel they're under attack. When you have an administration that tries to raise taxes and has on businesses, when it puts in place Obamacare that's going to raise the cost of health care for businesses, when they stack the National Labor Relations Board with labor stooges, which means that the policies relating to labor are now going to change dramatically in a direction they find uncomfortable, when you have Obamacare that places more mandates on them, when you have Dodd-Frank, which makes it harder for community banks to make loans, all these things collectively create a reality of a president who has been anti-investment, anti-jobs, anti-business, and people feel that. And if you want to get this country going again, you have to recognize that the role of government is not just to catch the bad guys, important as that is. It's also to encourage the good guys.
All right.
And to return America to a land of opportunity.
Back to John and Andy. John, go ahead.
Governor Romney, I'm going to stay with you for one moment here on the talking about regulation. One of your prime New Hampshire supporters, Senator Kelly Ayotte, has said, quote, New Hampshire should not be the tailpipe for pollutants from out-of-state power plants. Many Senate Republicans attacked an EPA rule limiting air pollution that affects downwind states. But she and others, including Scott Brown, joined with the president and Senate Democrats to block a repeal effort. Now, is this an example, this cross-state air pollution rule, of fair regulation, something that we in the Northeast are very concerned about in terms of pollution? Or is this overregulation, job-killing overregulation?
Well, I'm not familiar with the specific regulation as it applies to New Hampshire, but I do believe that we have a responsibility to keep the air clean, and we have to find ways to assure that we don't have the pollution of one state overwhelming the ability of another state to have clean air. I know in my state of Massachusetts, we received a lot of air from the rest of the country, obviously given the winds coming from the west of the country to the east, and so the responsibility in our state was to get the emissions from our power plants down. That's one of the reasons why we moved to natural gas. And really, by the way, it's discussion about energy and security and getting the cost of gasoline down. The big opportunity here is not just a new oil distribution system, but it's natural gas. We have massive new natural gas reserves that have been found in Pennsylvania, in North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas. Natural gas cheap, a fraction of the cost per BTU of oil. If we want to help people in New England have not only homes and businesses that emit less pollutant into the air and therefore would have cleaner air and also have lower cost energy, it's let's build out this natural gas system so that we can take advantage of that new enormous source of American economic strength.
Speaker Gingrich, what exactly is an environmental solutions agency? I think a lot of people might not know or understand that why you want to disband the EPA and set up something that kind of looks like the EPA.
If you look at the EPA's record, it is increasingly radical, it's increasingly imperious, it doesn't cooperate, it doesn't collaborate, and it doesn't take into account economics. The city of Nashville recently had a dump that was cited by EPA. They went down to find out what was it being cited for, and they told them, frankly, we don't know. We can't find the records that led to this citation, and we're not exactly sure what it referenced, but it must be bad or we wouldn't have sent it out. In Iowa, they had a dust regulation underway because they control particulate matter. And I do agree on clean air. There are things they should do that are right. But dust in Iowa is an absurdity. And they were worried that the plowing of a cornfield would leave dust to go to another farmer's cornfield. And they were planning to issue a regulation. In Arizona, they went in on the dust regulation and suggested to them that maybe if they watered down the earth, they wouldn't have these dust storms in the middle of the year. And people said to them, you know, the reason it's called a desert is there's no water. Now, this is an agency out of touch with reality, which I believe is incorrigible, and you need a new agency that is practical, has common sense, uses economic factors, and in case of pollution, actually incentivizes change, doesn't just punish it.
All right, Andy.
Governor Perry, your party's last nominee, John McCain, wrote in the Washington Post in an op-ed about a year ago, his words, "I disagree with many of the president's policies, but I believe he is a patriot sincerely intent on using his time in office to advance our country's cause. I reject accusations that his policies and beliefs make him unworthy to leave America or opposed to its founding ideals." Agree?
I make a very proud statement and a fact that we have a president that's a socialist. I don't think our founding fathers wanted America to be a socialist country. So I disagree with that premise that somehow or another that President Obama reflects our founding fathers. He doesn't. He talks about having a more powerful, more centralized, more consuming and costly federal government. I am a 10th Amendment believing governor. I truly believe that we need a president that respects the 10th Amendment, that pushes back to the states, whether it's how to deliver education, how to deliver health care, how to do our environmental regulations. The states will considerably do a better job than a one-size-fits-all Washington, D.C. led by this president.
Can I just jump in with Senator Santorum? Governor Perry, you call the president a socialist. Senator Santorum, when you voted for a new prescription drug benefit that did not have a funding mechanism, were you advancing socialism?
Well, I've said repeatedly that we should have had a funding mechanism, and it's one of those things that I had a very tough vote. As you know, in that bill, we had a health savings account, something I'd been fighting for 15 years to transform the private sector healthcare system into a more consumer, bottom-up way of doing it. We also had Medicare Advantage to transform the entire Medicare system into Medicare Advantage is basically a premium support type model.
Were you advancing socialism, though?
So,
that's
well,
the point.
I think I'm just answering your question. Maybe we're not communicating well, but I just talked about the medical health savings accounts is an anti-socialistic idea to try to build a bottom-up consumer-based economy in healthcare. The same thing with Medicare Advantage. And we also structured the Medicare Part D benefit to be a premium support model as a way of trying to transition Medicare. So there were a lot of good things in that bill. There was one really bad thing. We didn't pay for it. We should have paid for it, and that was a mistake.
Do you have another follow-up on that?
No, I'm going to switch to Congressman Paul, and I'm going to say many Americans, particularly Democrats, believe that health care is a right. In your opinion, what services are all Americans entitled to expect to get from government?
Entitlements are not rights. Rights mean you have a right. Rights mean you have a right to your life, and you have a right to your liberty, and you should have a right to keep the fruits of your labor. And this is quite a bit different. But earlier on, there was a little discussion here about gay rights. I, in a way, don't like to use those terms: gay rights, women's rights, minority rights, religious rights. There's only one type of right. It's your right to your liberty. And I think this causes divisiveness when we see people in groups, because for too long we punish groups. So the answer then was let's relieve them by giving them affirmative action. So I think both are wrong. If you think in terms of individuals and protect every single individual, no, they're not entitled. One group isn't entitled to take something from somebody else. And the basic problem here is there's a lot of good intention to help poor people, but guess who gets the entitlements in Washington? The big guys get the rich people. They run the entitlement system, the military-industrial complex, the banking system.
Okay.
Those are the entitlements we should be dealing with.
Dr. Ball, thanks. In our remaining moment here, back to you, John.
Okay. Well, Governor Huntsman, Andy and I are about to wrap up our role in this debate. And as we do, I'd like to ask you, as someone who's been here in New Hampshire a while, what is our state motto, live free or die, mean to you personally, and how would it guide you in the White House?
It is the fulfillment of a citizenry being able to live out the meaning of our founding documents: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And everywhere I have gone in this great state, and we've done 160-plus public events, I feel it and I sense it, and people take that very seriously. You know what else they take seriously? They take seriously the idea of real leadership. I've heard a lot of obfuscating up here, the blame game, talking about gays, talking about unions. Everybody's got something nasty to say. You know what the people of this country are waiting for? And the people who they want a leader who is going to unify, who's going to bring us together. Because at the end of the day, that's what leadership is all about. It's not about taking on different groups and vilifying them for whatever reason. It's about projecting a vision for a more hopeful tomorrow. That's why there is no trust in this country today. And that's why, as president, I'm going to attack that trust deficit just as aggressively as I attack that economic deficit. Because with no trust, I can't think of anything more corrosive longer term for the people of this nation.
All right, we're gonna leave it there. Thank you, John. Thank you, Andy, both. We're going to take another quick break here. I'll be back with a final round of questions, including your questions from our Meet the Press Facebook page. We're back with our final moments in just a moment. Gentlemen, candidates, we have just a few minutes left, and I'd like to try something because I do want to get to as much substance and pin you down on views as best I can. I know this could be hard for you, but you are spending a lot of money getting your message out in 30-second increments based on what I've been watching in the hotel room here in New Hampshire. So I know you know how to do this. Let's try having 30-second answers to some of these questions, and we might have some response along the way. Senator Santorum, I want to ask you about Iran. It's been a big issue in the course of this campaign so far. I wonder why it is, if America has lived with a nuclear Soviet Union, we have come to live with a nuclear North Korea. Why is it that we cannot live with a nuclear Iran? And if we can't, are you prepared to take the country to war to disarm that country?
They're a theocracy. They're a theocracy that has deeply embedded beliefs that the afterlife is better than this life. President Ahmadinejad has repeatedly said the principal virtue of the Islamic Republic of Iran is martyrdom. So when your principal virtue is to die for Allah, then it's not a deterrent to have a nuclear threat if they would use a nuclear weapon. It is, in fact, an encouragement for them to use their nuclear weapon. And that's why there's a difference between the Soviet Union and China and others and Iran.
What about Pakistan? They are an indifferent ally at best. They have nuclear weapons. Are you also prepared as president to say they must disarm or else?
They are not a theocracy. And we're very hopeful of maintaining a more secular state than is in place today. But there is a serious threat. And this administration has bungled it about as badly effectively as they can and trying to continue those positive relationships. We've had some real serious problems with the Pakistani military, obviously with respect to Osama bin Laden, with respect to North Waziristan. But you have the reason is we have a president who's just very weak in that region of the world and is not respected, right. and therefore he's not been able to have that strong hand in working with Pakistan that they're used to.
Speaker Gingrich, how about tone of this campaign? I was in Iowa. I heard you on the stump. You complained bitterly about the super PAC, the outside groups that were lodging charges against you, bringing up some old issues against you. And now you have a former campaign spokesman who is preparing attacks against Governor Romney, calling him, quote, a predator for his involvement at the investment company